We need a name for the podcast, and I was thinking we could go with something just kind of completely innocuous in that, and I was just thinking like that one sports podcast,
Yeah,
just something
yeah, I
simple.
like it.
That one sports podcast.
If
Hey,
if
you listen to
something
that
comes
sports?
to me,
You listen to that podcast? Which podcast? That sports podcast. What sports podcast?
uh,
That sports podcast. Oh,
yeah,
you mean that sports podcast? Yeah, I'd watch that. I'd listen to it. It's pretty cool.
yeah. Pretty soon, people would be like, "It's that sports podcast."
Exactly.
Put a little emphasis on it.
Exactly.
So we got some work to do first before we do that. And
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching another episode of That Sports Podcast. I'm Brandon. This is Anthony.
what's up? What's up?
Thanks
What's
for
up,
tuning in
man?
for another episode. Yeah, I like your enthusiasm, Anthony. You're always excited as always. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
I thought this time I'd give you a little, give you a proper introduction and just wait for you to jump in there, but we'll get it working. We'll get it working.
we'll get it
Anyway,
going.
so tonight Anthony has insisted on starting the show again with more Olympics crap. So please, Anthony, if you don't mind, and share with us your whatever you've got for the Olympics.
Yeah. So with the Olympics, we know that in terms of the ice hockey, and I'm a big hockey fan. And Brandon says he likes the Rangers. He watched the Rangers, right, a little bit. So I want to kick it off with that because we have the U.S. women's ice hockey team. They're in the semifinals. They're going to play Canada. It's a huge matchup. I think on the last episode of the show, we might have talked about them and how they were cruising through the preliminary rounds. But now they've got Canada, and Canada's look like the best team
Yeah,
at the Olympics.
by a long shot too, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like 12-1, they won their first game, all this stuff.
Every time I hear that, it's
Yeah.
like they're playing hockey. God.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's hockey. It's not volleyball,
Right.
right?
So
You
it
ever,
sounds
you
like.
ever, yeah, you ever been to a volleyball game?
Yeah, I like watching women's volleyball.
I like it too. Yeah, yeah. Not the men's, not the men's. No.
Not so much. I mean, it's not as entertaining. I mean,
You know, yeah, yeah. I think did you watch it at last year's Olympics?
no, I didn't even watch the Olympics last year.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was kind of like a lackluster Olympics, but we did have and I was covering it. We were covering a bit of it. Well, I was for Jersey Sporting News, but I wrote about Athing Mu, who's from Trenton, New Jersey. She won the women's 800 meter in the track. She won gold, and that was the first time since like 1968 so, that an American won that.
Yeah,
But anyways,
I saw
go ahead.
America's moving up in the medal count. They
Yeah,
were getting blown out at first, and now I think they're like what, fourth place now.
I think they're tied for fourth. Yeah. I think Norway might have the lead now. They've got a bunch of golds now, and now they're like, I don't know, they've got like 15 total medals or something like that. So Norway is just barely in the lead. You've got like Germany and Canada and some other countries in front there. Actually, the Netherlands too. The Netherlands are pretty far up there. Excuse me. Did you catch that?
Yeah, I got it.
For a small country, they're in the top 5, I think. So, and then Sweden is the one. How could I forget? As a Rangers fan, Henrik Lundqvist. Sweden's like in third place, and I think they had this guy Niels van der Poel. He won the speed skating. Like it's like this one where one guy goes around like for a long time, like keeps doing laps and tries to beat his record or something like that. So he won the gold.
So what about the skiing stuff you were talking about? You were going on about some skiing stuff.
Yeah, there was last night I was watching a Swiss female skier by the name of Gut Barami was her last name. She got the gold in one of the alpine skiing events, might have been the Super G, and everybody was saying, that Michaela Schifrin was going to win it, was the American favorite, which she didn't. And it's been kind of a rough Olympics for her after, I would say the last two, she had been dominant.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I
So
heard her name in the headlines, but I don't think it was about that. Maybe I got mixed up. I don't know. I really haven't been keeping up with the Winter Olympics. Like I said, I really don't care. I mean,
you know
anyway,
what sorry, I just got one more thing to say.
I was
Like
getting ready to let you go. Go ahead.
what could they do to make it more exciting for people like, perhaps like you, or, like me, like maybe I don't like the cross country, the monotony of it, like it's a long event.
There's just
What could they
nothing you
do?
can do. There's nothing you can do to you can. The only thing you can do is really. They've already done as much as they can do to make it this sport interesting. Because I was going to say they could expand the audience, but you can watch the Olympics just about anywhere. You can stream it. It's on television. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you can follow it however you want. I mean, it's just not for everybody. I mean, it's cold weather sports. So mostly only cold people who enjoy cold weather sports are going to be into it. You know what I mean? People who actually enjoy skiing, people who've actually skied, people who have some interest in skiing, right? Like it's not a big fan base, and there's nothing they're going to do to change it. I mean, speed skating is like sprinting, right? I'm not going to sit here and say that everybody gets on the television to watch the Olympic sprinters. Watching someone run is fucking boring. Now, if you're watching like a police chase on foot or something like that, and you see some redneck barefoot crystal meth guy running through the forest and stuff like that, getting away from the cops, you're like, oh man, I hope they get that rotten bastard. You know what I mean? But you're gonna sit here and tell
Yeah.
me that you just want to watch somebody sprint. Like I get why people do it because they enjoy it. They have somebody else, they participated. It was their sport. It was something they enjoyed, but not a lot of people enjoy it compared to the other sports. There's more action in baseball and football and hockey and stuff like that. I mean, people are probably watching the hockey in the Olympics and stuff like that, but a lot of people aren't going to watch curling. I mean, most people don't even know what curling is.
Good point. I want to kind of figure it out, but basically all I know is that you try to knock the other person's stone out of the way there, and try to get closer to the bullseye.
It's
But
kind of like
anyway,
cornhole with big rocks.
okay,
You're
yeah,
just
yeah.
instead of tossing them, you're sliding them and stuff like that. And they
Uh,
have the brooms to kind of like make the surface rough or smooth
yeah,
it out or something like that. And so the rock gets certain speed and slide and everything. So I mean, it's
I
all
love
just
the I
it's
love
really
the
cool to
sweeping.
watch them do it. But I mean, I
Yeah.
couldn't sit there and watch it round after round after round and just keep up with it. It wouldn't work for me.
Okay.
Anyway, enough of pretending like I care about the Olympics. Thank you, Anthony, for sharing all that. Everybody, I'm sure there were some inquiring minds who wanted to know. So thank you for sharing. We really
Sure.
appreciate it. Anyway,
Yeah.
so let's go over here and talk about one of the biggest headlines in basketball is the James Harden trade. So James Harden went to Philly, and then in turn, the Nets got Ben Simmons, Andre Drummond, and Seth Curry. Um, my thoughts on it were that, I figured this was going to happen after the season was over, right? I really did. I thought Harden was unhappy, but I thought he bought in enough to where this trade wouldn't happen until after the season. The fact that it happened before the season, to me, it's kind of the Nets sounding the alarm that they're in desperation mode trying to save their playoff hopes. And I mean, with them circling the drain and now hitting the ninth seed and stuff like that, I mean, they're fast approaching being knocked out of the playoffs. So I don't think it's a full crisis yet, but they're definitely heading in that direction. And I think, if I'm being completely honest, I think Philly got the better end of that trade deal. What do you think?
Yeah. I think James Harden was, let me see. I mean, he was the best player in that trade, so I could see why you'd say that. I think somebody said on NBA TV or something, they were just like the Nets are a much deeper team now because they got like all the three of those players, and it rounds them out a little bit better. And so, I'm wondering what you think about that.
I mean, I agree with this. I agree with the logic. And that's why I say it's kind of like them sounding the alarm. They weren't getting it done with James Harden. James Harden wasn't happy there because he didn't want to carry the load. So now they have to figure out what to do. Now, but my only problem with this trade for Brooklyn is that Ben Simmons hasn't played much basketball. And now you have to consider the fact that it's like how they're already dealing with Kyrie missing half of the season, right? Sitting out and not playing and stuff, and now he's only playing halftime. So now you have another guy who pretty much has sat out the entire basketball season, refuses to play for Philly and everything like that. They're fining him and he's still refusing to get out on the court. So now you have another one of those type of people who's got that mindset of like, it's me first over the team. How do all those egos play into it? You know what I mean? And with Seth Curry's development and stuff, I'm not saying that they're not good players. I just feel like at this point, right now, as it stands, Philly has the better chance of keeping their playoff hopes alive more so than Brooklyn. Brooklyn's already in the downslide. There's not many games left. So they have to win the majority. What are we talking, like maybe 20 games left, 25 or something like that? I know it's getting close to 30 or less than 30 at this point.
It's probably just about 30-ish, maybe just under 30 games left.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, we're coming up on about 25 games left in the season, and we're talking about them having to win the majority of them out, and then win a set, win in the playoffs too. And that's like I said. And then we were talking about the modified playoffs, so they're going to have the playoff against the lower seeds before they actually do the next round of the playoffs or whatever that is and stuff like that. So it's like,
Yeah.
how is that going to factor in? And we've talked about it. The injury bug always gets worse at the end of the season before it's at the end of the season, because these guys have been playing long, hard seasons and stuff like that, and it catches up.
Oh, absolutely. And it's bit them here with Durant going down a serious injury. And really, I understand that Kyrie Irving's reluctance to get vaccinated and the fact that he's playing not a lot of games has been a detriment. And I think Durant, you really see the value that he has to the Nets uh, in the fact that he's out now. Now, as far as what you said about the trade and Harden, I think Harden's a great player. I was thinking about earlier today. He's a facilitator of the ball as well as a clutch player, as a great scorer. So he is basically as good as you can be in his body type and with his skill set. So the 76ers are getting an elite player who is hungry as well to win a championship. Now, Ben Simmons was refusing to play this year. And, for whatever reason, I'm not sure if you know, like exactly.
He just didn't
Like,
want to play
because
in
he's
Philly no
upset.
more. He just didn't
Yeah.
want to play in Philly no more. That was it. He just checked out of Philly. That his time in Philly was done. He, I guess, he got to a point where they weren't winning playoff games, and he didn't like the fact that I mean, they talked about it in the playoffs and said that Ben Simmons is a big part of the reason that they lost. He just isn't a clutch basketball player. He's not the guy that you want shooting jump shots. His game is weak. You know what I mean? Like the only thing
Mm,
he can do is drive to the basket. And while he is
mm,
dominant in that aspect of his game, there are elite defenders who will shut that down. And once he starts getting out of his way and everything, I mean, just look at it now. He's not getting his way in Philly. He's not getting whatever he wants in Philly, and he's pulling away. He's withdrawn. So, and he does the same thing on the basketball court. He's not having a good game and stuff like that. You can see it. It translates. So it's very tangible stuff, and it's a poor mentality. It's a poor attitude, and it can poison a team very quickly.
very, very good. Very well said. Yes. I think that's there's always, like, when you look at a trade, you could take it at face value, and then there's always a subtext to it, right? And the subtext here is that Ben Simmons might be a very talented player, but he hasn't been all on board with his team most recently, and the Nets desperately need somebody to be all on board because they have two of their superstars. They only have two superstars left. I don't know if you count Simmons as one,
I
but
mean, he's borderline because he was out there in
right.
Philly and he had some success. I mean, the Philly fans are diehard and stuff like that. And I mean, I think that's part of the reason that he wanted out of Philly too, because they turned on his ass. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
people were calling him out on his shit.
Well, who
I
is calling him out?
I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
the fans
The
can't stand it. I
fans?
mean,
Wow.
Joel Embiid is out there balling, and then Ben Simmons is out here doing what?
Not playing.
Exactly.
No, the fans would be irate about that. That'd be like, Henrik Lundqvist refusing to play, and he would never do that. And the Rangers fans,
I mean,
saying you've been a great player, but what are you doing now?
I mean, even in his playoff performances when they made the playoffs, didn't they make the playoffs last year, the year before, and then they got bounced out? It was Ben Simmons' performances. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not squarely hanging it on him, but they would have done better, or could have gone farther in the playoffs if Ben Simmons' game was a little bit stronger. If he took this whole time that he was sitting out from Philly to work on his jump shot, and then he came back and he became like a 35% shooter from the field, from all areas and stuff like that, like, around that, then, maybe. But as far as I'm concerned, Ben Simmons is just he's a guy that can play down low. He can get in the paint, but is that what Brooklyn needs?
well, I would say that Irving doesn't he like to get in the paint, but he's not
I mean, but
necessarily
he still has
physical.
he has a nice jump shot though. Like he's still
Yes.
gonna hit a couple of big shots. He's still gonna, drain some buckets. Ben Simmons is just not that guy. Like he'll be when he's on, but when he's off, he's off. And he makes up for it by being able to drive and dribble and stuff like that and facilitate, ball handling skills and stuff. But he doesn't do enough of that to help teams win, to help the 76ers win a game. I mean, they've had Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons for a long time now. I want to say at least 3 years minimum, right? Like,
Yeah, definitely.
so, and they still have not had the kind of success that they should be having with a talent such as Ben Simmons. I mean, people were, singing Ben Simmons' praises, and people still are singing his praises, obviously, which is why they were able to get him in this trade.
Yeah, I mean, it's just fascinating that Harden would want out, right? I mean, he was brought here to win a championship. This was supposed to be his best chance to do that, and he just decided, what probably due to Irving this season, he decided he doesn't want any part of it. Brandon, I mean, it's kind of like that's what really blindsided me here. I mean, we had been hearing for a couple of weeks that Harden was upset with Irving, but I just didn't think that he would leave in the middle of the season, like you pointed out.
I mean, it might not have necessarily been his decision to leave in the middle of the season, but he wasn't going to turn it down either. You know what I mean? Like, if they're going to let me out earlier, then I'll leave earlier. Who even knows that? Maybe the Nets weren't even sure that they were going to pull the trigger on on that move. But when they dropped down in the ninth place, started to look like a pretty good deal. You know what I mean? Like they're really trying to shake things up and change things around. It's just like the Lakers right now. People are wondering what the Lakers need to do. Maybe the Lakers needed to make a trade or something like that. But I mean, at the end of the day, they haven't made any moves. And LeBron James, after that at that press conference after that loss, talking about, oh, I'm tired and I just want a glass of wine and go to bed. Dog, you do not work a regular 9 to 5. You cannot be talking like that after a loss. Like, if
Yeah.
that's how you feel about it, then you need to retire, player. Because that does not sound like the competitive spirit that we all need to hear. That we all need to hear after a loss like that. If I was a Lakers fan, I'd be pissed. I would be listening to that shit. Like, they pay him all that much money just for him to tell us that he's tired and he want to go to bed. Come on, man.
Just when we were talking about, I believe you sent me that article today with Stephen A. Smith quoted in it and stuff,
Yeah.
and talking about how big contracts are ruining professional sports. Well, just when we were talking about it in our production meeting, we were saying, LeBron James, he's still playing great at the age of 38. And just when we say that, he goes and says something like that. And yeah, I mean, you can't say that. If you're supposed to, if you want to be perceived as a hard worker, you can't come out and say that.
No, not at all. I mean, even if you are, even, you can say it's been a long season, right? We've been trying to grind it out. We still got to find answers. And he could have left it at that. We don't need to hear all the X's and the O's and all this technical talk and everything like that. All he had to do was just say some vague, let's go get him next time speech and call it a damn day. But you're going to sit here up on national television making all of them millions of dollars and talk to us like we should just get over it because it's another day at the salt mines.
The salt mines? Is that what you think?
Yeah, the salt
That's a
mines.
good one.
I mean,
That's a good one.
I can't imagine if I was playing pro soccer right now, right? I would not have a gripe in the world until my paycheck started to dip below $4,000 a month. I don't care how many millions of dollars I made in early on in my career. But if my paycheck starts to dip down past $4,000 a month, then I'm just like, you know what? I need to get out of this damn game. Somebody needs to find me some more money. Something needs to change, right? Because you can get by on 4,000. It's a decent lifestyle for $4,000 a month. You know what I mean? After taxes and stuff, it's pretty decent lifestyle in a lot of places,
Okay.
depending on where the cost here in this area where I live
Yeah.
at. Yeah, that's a decent cost of living area. It's not that bad. Now you're talking about 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000. There's a huge gap between that and millions of dollars a year. You know what I mean? So my point is that I wouldn't be complaining after a long game like that. My focus would be, we lost and I'm mad. There's no reason we should be losing. We got Russell Westbrook. We got LeBron James. We got Anthony Davis. We have a whole show-stopping cast right here, and we're still shitting the bed. Why?
Well, perhaps they're depth players. Did I say it right? Depth
Well,
players
Russ Wilson
are
hasn't
not
been playing
good.
that well at all. He has not
No,
been playing at all good at all since
Mhm.
he came to LA.
But so how much do like say the Nets have the best bench or the best depth in the league? When they were playing well a month ago, how much did that factor into taking the load off of
Well,
Durant?
when Kevin Durant goes down and the team is automatic drop 6 places, that answers your question right there.
No, but this is more like when a team is playing well that has superstars. How much is it also about having some depth,
And I
to
just
support
pointed
them?
out the fact that that Brooklyn lost one player and dropped 6 spots since his absence. That means that there's nobody on that team who's picking up the slack in his absence. There's no reason for that. None.
Well, but they're also dealing with missing Irving in certain games, and then and missing Irving. But yeah, they should be. They still had Harden, so I don't know. I mean, my point is that if you look at the Lakers roster, do you see depth there, like up and down the
They
roster?
still have more of their superstars than Brooklyn, and they're still in the same boat as Brooklyn. I don't understand how many more different ways I could put it. It's not about the
Okay.
depth. It's about them hedging their bets on all of these big time players, these big money guys, these big contract guys, and they're getting duds. That's what they've got right now. They're sitting in a predicament where both of these teams spent millions of dollars to win a championship, and now their seasons are respectively circling the drain. They don't have any rotation. They don't have any depth. If they did, they would not be in such a terrible spot. We could have the conversation about depth and rotation if they were like both fifth or sixth, you know what I mean? Between fourth and sixth place, fourth and seventh place, still firmly within playoff reach. But now, as this season goes on, we're watching their playoffs hope slip away.
Sorry. Yeah. It's so. Do you find this to be the most surprising, disappointing story in sports right now?
Not at all. Not at all. I find it to be completely on brand. I mean,
Mm.
it's exactly the stuff that I've talked about when they start forming these super teams in the first place. The first thing is that it's messed up the game of basketball all the way through and through, right? Like everybody's hedging their bets on these big super teams, and then the super teams shit the bed. And then now we're not even talking about the teams that are actually doing well. The Lakers and the Nets are dominating the headlines because they have all of these big names, all of these big titles and stuff like that, and they're putting up a dud. But why are these other teams beating the Lakers and the Nets? Because they have a better rotation. They have a better squad all the way around. They miss that one person goes down, it's the next man up, and they're ready to play.
Except for the Knicks. The Knicks are still kind of mediocre-ish. They're yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, they are still the Knicks. Let's be honest. As much success as they've had, they're still the Knicks. So, anyway,
Well, yeah, that's good.
yeah,
Good
all
talk.
right. So Kristaps Porzingis is traded to. That's another surprising move. I'm curious to know if there was something behind the scenes with Kristaps. Maybe he wasn't happy in the Mavericks. Weren't they in fifth place? So I can't imagine that he's disgruntled with their chances of making a playoff and a championship run. And he goes to the Wizards, and the Mavericks get Spencer Dinwiddie and in return and a couple of other players. I believe they got a big in that trade. So, I could definitely see why they thought they needed to make that trade, but I'm still shocked that they did it.
Same here. This is in about 4 years for Porzingis since he left the Knicks in
Yeah.
that surprising trade.
Hmm.
This is the second time he's been quickly shipped off elsewhere. You have to think that he's got some issues getting along with people in those organizations. I know with the Knicks, his frustration was merited because the team was terrible
Yeah.
and it was consistently terrible, right? And he had problems with the front office, the players, that he probably, he was playing great at that point and he was giving it everything he got and he had no help in New York. So he was frustrated. So as much as I was surprised when he left because it was very quick in the middle of the season, that was okay, from that standpoint. Now I don't understand it. Dallas Mavericks are in fifth place in a tough conference. Uh, he was supposed to go there and be the franchise player or one of them, and it just isn't turning out. So and he's decided to leave right away.
Yeah. It's really crazy. Um, just to see how quickly that happened. I mean, he hasn't been there long. It's been a season or two, right? I don't think it was the
Yeah, I think almost four at this point, but three or four, yeah.
yeah,
Because the Knicks thing was definitely before the pandemic. So
yeah, it's he's been moving around a lot. So I mean, it'd definitely be interesting to find out what happened behind the scenes.
and also he's there with Doncic, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So why would you leave that situation? I don't understand.
I don't get it.
Crazy.
So we've already talked about the Lakers and their abysmal season. What do you think would make them better?
Well, not a whole lot because they're so strapped with these players. Anthony Davis has a huge contract. LeBron is, I think he's on a 2-year deal, and this is his last year of it.
Mm-hmm.
So they could listen. I mean, it's kind of simple as a general manager. Yes, LeBron's still playing great, but do you want to just rebuild? Because I think, to be honest, at this point, what would make them better? It would be getting like a player like Ben Simmons or something like that. But he's already taken. Uh, I mean, imagine if you could put, I don't know how you could do it, but if you could put Porzingis and Davis on the court at the same time, that would be great. But that's he's already taken. So I don't know really what they can do at this point. They'd have to go and maybe get Cam Reddish from the Knicks or something like that and try to plug in little holes here and there. But I don't know, Brandon. It's I almost think like the season's a wash for the Lakers.
So do I. There some people feel like right now that's kind of what they're doing. They're just, tanking the season. I don't want to say that they're not playing, but they're definitely not performing the way that they should be performing with that amount of star power. And I will say that's what happens when you get certain stars together and people together. It just doesn't work. And that's what's going on right now. I think what the Lakers need to do is they need to pick one of those three superstars to lead them into the future and then dismiss the other two. I think the whichever one of them, whichever one's the youngest and has the longest life on their career, I would say stick with them. I mean, and I'm primarily hinting at Anthony Davis staying with the Lakers, and then LeBron James and Russell Westbrook, going off and going elsewhere. But I don't see that being a dynasty team anymore. I like there right now. There are 8 other teams that have their number, as far as I'm concerned. Right? Like they're in
100%.
ninth place. They're in ninth place, and there are 8 other teams that are playing better basketball than them on average. Right? Even 8 and 7 spots are still playing better basketball. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, the Lakers continue to drop down. So it's like I just don't see it as a feasible situation to keep going into the future. I mean, and with the aging stars and stuff like that, it's just I think it's time to really look at LeBron in the offseason and say, hey, look, we're thinking, what do you think about a trade? Where would you want to go and stuff like that? You know what I mean? Like, I'm serious. I'm being completely serious about it. I
Yeah,
mean, I know
yeah.
he's got a lot of time left on his contract, but at the end of the day, like, what can you really do with that whole situation?
And where do you think LeBron would want to go at this point late in his career?
I don't know. Anywhere he has the pick of the litter, anybody would want him. It's just what markets can afford him.
New York,
Who's willing to turn
Chicago.
around and who's willing to give up the most to get him?
That's interesting. I mean, I would say that I would love him on the Knicks, but well, it all comes down to if his contract is up after this year, which I think it is, then they would just have to pay him. They just sign him as a free agent. It's a possibility. I can't think of a better player to come into a young Knicks team with some of the young players that they have now with Reddish and Barrett and try to mentor them. I think it would be interesting. But
Yeah.
anyways,
Yep. All right. So let's talk about the Super Bowl real quick and then we'll end this episode. So if you want to go on ahead and start us off with this one, Anthony, will take us home.
sure. Super Bowl 56 coming up this Sunday. The Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Los Angeles Rams. The game will be played at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. So the Rams will treat this like a home game. So it's going to be interesting. Also, you've got a big quarterback, an interesting quarterback comparison here. You've got Matt Stafford, the wily veteran, who's 34 years old. He's waited 12 years to get here. He's going up against the young hotshot Joe Burrow. So, Brandon, what do you think here?
I think I mentioned it on the previous podcast. I like Burrow. I think he's a great quarterback. I think he's gonna have a long career if he keeps playing the way that he's playing and stuff like that. Like he's gonna have a home in Cincinnati for a long time. Um, but I think we're finally seeing Matthew Stafford live up to the potential that people saw in him. I mean, a lot of people want to discredit him because he didn't have a lot of success out in Detroit. But the truth of the matter is Detroit wasn't a good team when he got drafted. It wasn't a good team moving forward. Yeah, they had some teams that were sniffing at playoff spots. They were 500. I think one season they did actually make it into the playoffs, but they didn't make a deep run. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of success there. But now you're looking at him being on a team that has it on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. I mean, they have, the coaching is there as well. So, I mean, I think we're seeing the full potential of Matthew Stafford. And I think, if he wins this Super Bowl, good on him. I'm not actually all that surprised. You know what I mean? Like, he was touted as a superstar quarterback, out of college. Everybody was, he's got a big arm, he's talented, blah, 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 blah. He was supposed to, bring the Lions, from the ashes. And it never really happened. And it was because the Lions just couldn't get enough around him, couldn't get the coaching, the players, the staff, whatever. And so, I think, at the end of the day, would I say Matthew Stafford is better than Joe Burrow? Only because Matthew Stafford's been doing it longer.
Ah, interesting. Leaving a little space there for Burrow, and I don't blame you. Burrow is threatening. If I'm Matthew Stafford, I think there's a lot of pressure on both quarterbacks, but I would almost say that there's more pressure on Stafford because if you're the veteran, and he's a lot older than Burrow, he's like 11 years. You don't want to lose to a younger quarterback. You're looking at this. This might be your only shot at a Super Bowl. So I think there's big pressure on Stafford in his home stadium. He's going to be hoping that Von Miller and Aaron Donald can force a few fumbles and make life easier on him, and that's definitely a possibility. But I see Burrow as being as a very smart young quarterback. I think it's going to be a very tough game. And I actually predicted it. I said it would be 21-13 Rams, but we'll see. What do you think about that?
I think the Rams are going to win it. Do I think it'll be a close game? I mean, the Bengals have a lot to account for on offense and on defense. Okay, Odell Beckham is really finding a home in St. Louis. I mean, in on the Rams, right? Like he's doing really well out there. Cooper Cup. I mean, then you have the running back. I can't think of is it Akers?
Ah, I don't know.
I think it's
That's a tough one.
Akers. I think it's Cam
Yeah.
Akers. And I mean, and then on the defensive side of the ball, you have Aaron Donald and Von Miller. I mean, all it takes is for one of these guys to make a play on the ball, and it's it's a blowout. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If Cincinnati can't get those two guys on defense blocked, what happens? Joe Burrow starts having to make crazy throws. Jalen Ramsey loves snatching balls out of the air. So I mean,
Mm.
I don't necessarily know. I mean, I could see it being close, but I don't necessarily know that it will be. I think it'll be a little bit tougher for Cincinnati to get over the hump.
Yeah, absolutely. Great points. You went into more depth on the Rams. I didn't give Cooper Kupp credit. I think he led the league in yards receiving this year. Incredible season. Big guy, big target for Stafford there in the red zone. So he's going to be a lot to handle. And I know the Bengals got a lot of former Giants actually on him. Michael Thomas, who was a Pro Bowler in 2018, and I think he plays safety, and then BJ Hill is kind of like a linebacker safety kind of mix. So they've been having pretty good season playoffs so far. So it should be an interesting matchup, Brandon.
Yep. All right. That wraps up our episode for tonight. I am Brandon. This is Anthony. You guys catch us next week. Take it easy. Peace.
Peace.